Coca-Cola is arguably the most popular drink in the world. Well, behind water, of course, which is why you'll not be surprised to hear that they produce around 6 million tons of packaging every year. I mean, you can create a full-sized mountain if you stack up all those empty bottles and cans in one place. But don't worry about waste, because the company is on a serious mission to clean up their act through recycling on the largest scale possible. But how can they possibly do this? And what challenges will they face along the way? Keep watching this video to find out. Coca-Cola has a bold goal. By the end of 2025, they want every single one of their bottles and cans to be 100% recyclable. That means no more bottles sitting in landfills for hundreds of years or floating in the ocean like unwanted souvenirs. Instead, each one could be collected, broken down, and reborn as something brand new. Sounds good, right? But how exactly do they plan to pull this off? First, they're redesigning their packaging. If you think about it, a lot of plastic waste comes from packaging that isn't easily recyclable. Some bottles have multiple layers of plastic, labels that don't peel off properly, or weird caps that mess with the recycling process. Well, Coca-Cola's aim is to use at least 50% recycled materials in their packaging by 2030. That means every Coke bottle you hold in the future might have already lived a past life as another Coke bottle. It's basically bottle reincarnation. Right now, they're making progress, especially in Europe, where some Coca-Cola bottles already contain over 50% recycled content. But they still have a long way to go before this happens worldwide. Of course, making 100% recyclable packaging is only half the battle. The other half is making sure people actually recycle it. You'd be surprised how many people still toss plastic bottles in the trash, even when a recycling bin is right next to them. To fix this, Coca-Cola is working on educating people about recycling. They're putting clearer labels on their bottles to let you know they're recyclable, and even partnering with local governments to improve recycling systems. It's a big plan, and let's be real, Coca-Cola still has a lot of work to do. Right now, they're one of the biggest producers of plastic waste in the world, so making 100% recyclable packaging is the least they can do. But the real question is whether they can actually hit their targets in time. 2025 is already here, and with billions of bottles being produced every year, they need to work fast. Now, let's be honest, a bottle being recyclable doesn't mean much if nobody actually recycles it. That's where Coca-Cola's big collection plan comes in. They don't just want to make recyclable bottles. They also want to collect and recycle the same number of bottles they sell by 2030. In other words, for every Coke bottle out there, they want to make sure there's a system in place to get it back and turn it into something new. Sounds ambitious, right? So, how do they plan to do this? Well, a big part of the company's plans is to use deposit return schemes. If you've ever bought a drink in a bottle and had to pay a little extra because of a deposit system, you've already seen this in action. The idea is simple. You pay a small deposit when you buy a Coke, and you get it back when you return the empty bottle. It's like a reward for recycling. Coca-Cola is pushing for more of these systems around the world because they've been proven to work. People are way more likely to recycle if they know they'll get some money back. Still, if recycling feels like a chore, people won't do it. Coca-Cola is working on putting more recycling bins in public places, like parks, stadiums, and shopping centers. They're also working on technology that makes recycling easier, like smart bins that can sort materials automatically. Imagine just tossing your Coke bottle into a bin, and it magically knows exactly where to send it. Pretty cool, right? But let's be honest, a lot of people still don't know how recycling actually works. Some people think all plastic is recyclable, while others don't bother rinsing their bottles before tossing them in the bin, which can ruin the whole batch. Thankfully, Coca-Cola is running campaigns to teach people the right way to recycle. They're also putting clearer labels on their bottles, so you know exactly what to do with them once they're empty. Now, as I've mentioned before, Coca-Cola is already recycling over 50% of their packaging in Europe, which is a good start, but they still have a long way to go. Right now, millions of Coke bottles still end up as litter or in landfills every year. If they really want to hit their 2030 goal, they need to step up their game even more. At the end of the day, Coca-Cola's collection plan is a step in the right direction, but the real success depends on whether people actually recycle their bottles. So next time you finish a Coke, do the planet a favor and toss that bottle in the right bin. Because if Coca-Cola is serious about collecting every bottle they sell, they're gonna need all the help they can get. Okay, let's get real. Coca-Cola isn't just going to wave a magic wand and suddenly solve all the world's plastic waste problems, because no matter how many cans of Coke they recycle, it's going to take more than just the company to turn things around. That's where the power of teaming up comes in, and Coca-Cola knows it. They've partnered with some of the biggest environmental organizations to make a lasting impact. I'm talking about groups like the Ocean Conservancy and the World Wildlife Fund, or WWF. And these aren't just a bunch of folks putting on green t-shirts. These organizations have been tackling waste and pollution for decades. With Coca-Cola's reach and these groups' expertise, they're hoping to make the world a cleaner place for future generations. Now, if you've ever heard of the annual International Coastal Cleanup, then you know the Ocean Conservancy is all about getting rid of the plastic that clogs up our oceans. They have been working for years to not just clean up beaches, but to tackle the root causes of ocean pollution. Their partnership with Coca-Cola helps them fund cleanup operations and beach restoration projects worldwide. Coca-Cola is contributing through their World Without Waste initiative, which focuses on recycling and waste reduction. But the Ocean Conservancy brings in the expertise to help Coca-Cola meet their recycling goals and keep trash from reaching the ocean in the first place. It's a team effort with a real chance at making a difference. As for the World Wildlife Fund, their focus is protecting the planet's natural resources, from land to sea and everything in between. Coca-Cola's partnership with them helps fund projects that reduce plastic waste and protect ecosystems that are directly affected by pollution. They've also teamed up on campaigns to help consumers understand the importance of reducing, reusing, and recycling. If you've ever seen one of those cool WWF ads with polar bears or sea turtles and thought, "That's cute, but what can I do?" Well, the answer is clear: recycling. Coca-Cola and WWF are working to make sure that the packaging you toss away is properly recycled, making it easier for consumers to get on board. By teaming up with these environmental powerhouses, Coca-Cola is showing that they're not just in it for the PR. They're using their influence and their wallet to make a real impact. Through these partnerships, they're learning the ropes of recycling, figuring out ways to keep their bottles out of the ocean, and reducing the amount of plastic that ends up in landfills. It's not easy and it's not quick, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And the more companies that jump on board with this kind of approach, the better our planet will be in the long run. So, now that we know Coca-Cola is trying to be all eco-friendly and team up with some of the big names in environmental work, let's talk about the hurdles they've faced along the way. Let's be honest. No company, no matter how big, is going to get everything right, especially when it comes to such a complicated problem like plastic waste. Coca-Cola has faced some serious heat over the past few years, and while their goals are ambitious, they've also been criticized for not always living up to them. Let's rewind a bit. When Coca-Cola first announced their World Without Waste initiative, people were genuinely excited. Here was a huge company making a bold promise to reduce its waste and recycle everything it produced. It sounded like the perfect plan. But as time went on, the company revised some of its targets, and that's where the trouble started. As I've mentioned before, Coca-Cola originally set some pretty ambitious goals for 2025 and 2030, as they promised to make all of their packaging recyclable. And they also plan to use a larger percentage of recycled materials in their bottles. But now, some of those deadlines have been pushed back, which doesn't exactly inspire confidence. Critics have jumped all over these delays, pointing out that Coca-Cola, being one of the largest beverage companies in the world, has the resources to tackle these problems head-on. So, why not stick to the original goals? Well, the truth is that big companies like Coca-Cola are dealing with a massive global supply chain, and adjusting goals isn't as easy as it sounds. For example, Coca-Cola sources materials from all over the world. So it's not just about getting recycled plastic into bottles. It's about finding a consistent and reliable supply of that material. And let's not forget, not all countries have the same recycling infrastructure. Some places are still working to catch up to the recycling systems that we take for granted in more developed regions. So, while Coca-Cola is pushing for better recycling rates globally, the company's progress is slower in some areas than others. Then there's the issue of consumer behavior. Sure, Coca-Cola can make recyclable bottles, but if people don't recycle them properly, those bottles might as well be made of pure trash. That's another challenge Coca-Cola faces, getting people to actually follow through and put their cans and bottles in the right bin. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, if they're not sticking to their targets, why should I care? Fair point. But here's the thing. Even though Coca-Cola has adjusted some of its goals, they're still making a huge effort to reduce waste. The fact that they've teamed up with environmental groups and made progress on increasing recycled content in bottles means that they're heading in the right direction, even if they've hit a few bumps along the way. Of course, big goals come with big challenges, but at least they're making the effort, right? Moving forward, Coca-Cola is going to have to work hard to regain some trust. But here's where it gets interesting. The company could really lead by example if they stick to their plans, adjust when necessary, and work to overcome challenges. Sure, there are setbacks, but it's all part of the process. The more Coca-Cola and other big companies show that they're committed to change, the more likely it is that consumers, businesses, and even governments will start taking bigger strides toward a cleaner, more sustainable future. So, while Coca-Cola's road ahead may be full of potholes, they're still driving toward that ultimate goal, a world without waste by 2030. And if you'd like to know exactly how things are made in motion, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you in the next one.